Startup accelerators provide infrastructure and mentoring to help new companies grow into investable and profitable businesses. Tonight, we will discuss the theory and the reality in operating a successful accelerator. My name is Jim Connor. Welcome to Game Changers Silicon Valley, a show about the innovators of today who will be the game changers of tomorrow. My guests are Ravi Belani, the director of the Alchemist Accelerator, and Danielle COO at the Alchemist Accelerator. Ravi and Danielle, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. Let's start with an overview of the Alchemist Accelerator and how you operate.
Sure, and thank you, Jim. It's great to be here. So Alchemist is an accelerator focused on enterprise startups. What that means is that we run a 6-month program where we give founders a little bit of cash, $36,000, and then provide a structured path towards mentorship, customers, and funding for those companies. We're different than other accelerators because we only fund startups that monetize from other enterprises, and our program is longer than other accelerators, so it's a 6-month program, whereas a lot of other accelerators are 3 months. And we only fund companies that have technical teams. But we're looking for basically game-changing companies that are focused on the enterprise and then really trying to help those companies fulfill the most of their potential.
Mm-hmm. So many accelerators have been very broad. They've done, people call it a spray and pray approach. And it sounds like this focus is specific to the enterprise without any other vertical markets. Is that true? You don't have any life science or anything else?
Well, we are allowed to fund anything as long as it monetizes from the enterprise, but we have had certain focuses that have just naturally emerged. We do a lot of IoT, we do a lot of things across the enterprise, but we have everything from quantum computers to antimatter companies, which are just really disruptive, to cloud apps. So it really is a broad range. There's over 103 companies that have now graduated from Alchemist that are at least 6 months out, and it's the whole gamut.
It's great, great. So, this whole accelerator movement has gotten extremely large and broad and diverse, and you have all types. And I'll ask you, because you're an operator, what is your view of the accelerator world today?
Well, so the other thing that I am is I also teach. I teach entrepreneurship in the engineering school at Stanford. And I do view accelerators as almost like educational institutions. As a whole, the proliferation is a good thing. But just like schools and colleges, there are some colleges and schools that are not necessarily the best colleges to go to, but the broad trend of having more universities or more colleges and more accelerators is good. So I do think it's nice that there's a lot of accelerators out there because it gives choice to founders to really choose what's best, but it also makes it really important for the founders to separate the signal from the noise and to find out the accelerators that are really appropriate for them.
We're going to come back and revisit that one because that's a very
important question. Yeah.
Danielle, let's, you're the COO now and you're a partner at the Alchemist Accelerator. And how did you get involved and how long have you been there?
So it's a funny story actually. So I had graduated from Cal and did a year at Adobe as a digital marketer. I was going towards a path becoming a marketing professional. However, I realized that there was something wrong with doing spreadsheets 8 hours a day and a path of 3 to 5 years just to get to the next level. For the type of person that I am, it didn't make sense. And I had a mentor at the time, and he was trying to help me gauge what my next step should be. And he got a job position on his desk for a program manager at the Alchemist Accelerator. And so he had me meet with Ravi. And Ravi, I met with him. It was like an interview. It was really quick on my lunch break. I did a project. I actually built the first initiation dinner for our startups as a trial. And Ravi tried to convince me that it was a good idea. And of course, I was like, no, I can't make a decision right now. It's too fast. My mentor told me that to try it out. I had no idea about startups or what that world was like. And so I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But here I am almost 3 years later, and it's been a good ride.
Still having fun.
Yeah, still having fun, and we aim for that.
I want to ask you just a little more about the accelerator world, and we started to touch on that. How did you get the accelerator up and running? How did you get it started?
So the way we started it was that Alchemist started as an education series that was started off at the Harvard Club of San Francisco. So I was at DFJ, a venture capital fund, and I was Draper Fisher Jurvetson, which is the venture fund that's funded companies like Skype, Tesla, SpaceX. And when I was at DFJ, I got invited by the Alchemist series, which was an entrepreneurship education series out of the Harvard Club of San Francisco, to do a talk on teaching entrepreneurship. That series became successful, and we ended up doing a 6-week program. We didn't think about it as an accelerator, but when we did that, the number of enterprise founders that came to that program were just off the charts. And we were asking them, why are you coming to this 6-week program? And they said, because there's no home for us. So we don't need to raise $5 million. We only need $500,000 to get started. And all the other accelerators were focused really on consumer apps. So there wasn't really a home for them to actually focus on the enterprise. So that was the light bulb moment around which we said, okay, if you could design an accelerator that was just focused on the enterprise and you weren't encumbered by having done anything in the past, what would that look like?
For our audience purposes, let's talk what is the enterprise exactly. A lot of people think it's pure corporate, and maybe it is, but I'd like to get your definition.
Our definition of enterprise is monetizing from enterprises. So the way that we define that is if you make revenue from an enterprise, then Alchemist is very relevant. The reason, and so that could be, your users can be actually consumers, but you're monetizing from enterprises with a multi-sided business model. So even Google could qualify as enterprise because you're monetizing from advertisers, or you could be selling to corporates and monetizing. The reason why is because what's very significant about Alchemist is that we have a Rolodex of Fortune 500 corporates that we bring to the table to try to really short-circuit procurement events. So if that's relevant, we're very relevant. And we focus very heavily on sales and distribution for companies that are monetizing from enterprises.
Yeah, the good news is if you're monetizing from the enterprise, the corporate world, they can spend money, they have budgets, they tend to stay in business for a while.
Yeah, it's nice because you can control your fate more. So so even if you can't get cash from, the key thing that you need to do as a CEO is not run out of cash. I mean, at some fundamental level. You can get cash from investors, but it's even better if it comes from customers. And so the beautiful thing about the enterprise market is that we think enterprise is sexy because there's money. And money's sexy. And so and it's a different ballgame, it's a different way that you need to attack that space.
Yeah, we all see a lot of startups who are totally reliant on the advertising model.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous because you may get traction, you may not, and the solution providing can vaporize literally.
Yeah, and it's very seductive to say have this many eyeballs, but then you really have to distill. Sometimes that's, and it's also very easy to get experimental advertising revenue. So advertising can be seductive because you can start quickly and get some traction because advertisers have experimental budgets, but then there's a ton of noise, and so you have to be very discerning about if you're driving value.
You're drawing from a broad audience. Are you drawing from people who have worked at corporations primarily already?
It's a wide range. So our age range is, I think, 19 to 55, and so we have people that are literally dropping out of colleges. Although, as with my professor hat on, I don't encourage that. But if your path is entrepreneurial, we want to support that. I would say, on average, people have been working for a decade before they do Alchemist. So I think the average age is probably 31. But really, we love all entrepreneurs, and you can be, entrepreneurship can call you at any time. So we do have, the classic enterprise founder is somebody who's been working for a decade, they see a technology trend, they want to jump on it. But some of our most disruptive companies are people who've never worked in the enterprise. Aaron Levy, the founder of Box, never worked in the enterprise before he did Box. And many of the guys that are at Palantir, which is one of the biggest government enterprise startups, never worked in the enterprise space. So we love young founders that have never done anything in the enterprise, and we want to help them realize how that path can be actually incredibly attractive, as well as people that are more veterans and that are repeat founders.
We see this pattern over and over. Everybody loves the young guys, the young women, if you will. They got that have no fear. And then you got the people who have the more experience that they have a little fear. They've been burned, but they also have experience where they've had to terminate people and they've had to manage teams. So let me ask you, Danielle, since you're the COO, how do you run this program?
The process has been co-created over the last few years. At the base level, there's a 6-month program with weekly lectures from 5 to 9. We bring in a speaker to talk on a particular topic. Usually there's a couple speakers because we break up the night, and that happens for the 6 months. And then in some cases we have some events, some social gatherings.
Well, let me ask you one thing. Weekly, once a week, or do you have several events per week?
Once a week, Thursday nights, and we hosted in either San Francisco or Palo Alto. And those events range from either speakers, like lectures, to one-on-ones with investors or customers, or it can be a demo day in which we debut the company in front of 200 investors. So it really depends on where they are in the program. We start off really heavy on sales because as a B2B business, sales is the most important. And then as they go through the program and they're ready to fundraise, then we focus a lot on the fundraising skill sets.
So what about the day-to-day? Are they working in a job? Are they working on the company? I take it they're working on the company, but they're not at your location. Is that correct?
We don't have our own facilities to house the companies. We work out of co-working spaces shared by other startups.
So during the week, they're full-time.
They're full-time.
So nobody's part-time when they're working. Doing one-on-one sessions with mentors, customers, investors, and then also just driving their business. So they're really executing, largely it's customer development.
Is one person in charge of each company, I say, perhaps?
No, so what we have is, on the mentors, we have two types of mentors. We have coaches and we have experts. The coaches are just mapped to one company. They only work with that one company. They don't work with anybody else. And every company has 3 coaches. They have a CEO coach, who's usually a former CEO that's built a very significant business, usually $100 million or more. They have a sales coach that's a expert in sales, and they have a goal coach that's checking with them every 2 weeks to make sure that they're executing against what they're supposed to. And then we have experts, and the experts are shared by everybody. There's literally 450 experts that are shared for a class of 17. And so that's how, and the experts can be on everything from architecture to UX design.
This sales expert is quite unique. I haven't seen other accelerators having a focus on sales and sales experts.
Sales is critical, and so that's part of the biggest value that we can give our founders is to ramp up their coaching on how to sell better.
Let me just touch a little bit on how you got going. You got a corporation to put some money into this and get going. You want to just give us an update on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting model. So the people who give us money that we then give to the founders are a set of 5 corporates: Salesforce, SAP, Siemens, Tyco, and Cisco. Cisco, how can I forget Cisco? And then we also have 5 venture capital funds: DFJ, Coastal Ventures, Foundation Capital, Mayfield, and US Venture Partners.
Are they all equal contributors?
They're not all equal contributors. The range is between $500,000 to $2 million each that they've put in.
What is their motivation for this?
Yeah, it's a good question. Part of this model is that one of the original accelerators was Y Combinator. Some people know this, some people don't, but Sequoia, which was a prominent venture fund, they provided the preponderance of capital for the Y Combinator companies in the early days. And that created a very synergistic relationship because the venture capitalists have the money, but they don't have the time to really focus on the seed stage. And the YC Sequoia relationship bore fruit with companies like Dropbox and Airbnb that Sequoia ended up funding. Our mandate was really to build sort of the YC for the enterprise. So what the venture capitalists get out of it is that they get to start to foster relationships with the founders where there's a fit earlier. The founders are not obligated to, and the venture capitalists have no rights to invest in any of the companies, but there's natural self-selection that happens. We've had around 13 investments been made by our backers into Alchemist companies.
Are the corporate investors strategic investors primarily looking to get things that help them in their long-term business plan?
Yeah, so the strategics are doing it in a similar way as the VCs because they want to be exposed to all the innovation that's happening at the seed stage. Now, the ROI does happen when there is something that's significant to their businesses. Cisco has acquired 2 of our companies. Salesforce has funded, I think, 6 companies. There's explorations of partnerships with the different corporates. So all those events do lead to ROI for them.
So now you've had several classes. You've done how many classes so
We've
far?
done 12 classes have graduated.
All with the same 6 corporates and 6 VCs.
Yeah.
Correct? Are you going to open that up at all?
I will say that we haven't opened it up officially, but we definitely have expressions of interest, and we will be crossing that road soon.
Correct. So I think we're going to stop now, take a break, because we have just gotten into the real heart of the matter here of what happens once the class gets launched.
Yeah.
And we'll take a short break and be right back and continue with our discussion on the Alchemist Accelerator.
Terrific. Thanks.
This is Jim Connor. I'd like to thank you for joining us for this episode of Game Changer Silicon Valley. We'll be right back with our second segment on the Alchemist Accelerator.